We've lived at our current address for just over a year now. We've seen all of the seasons come and go and enjoyed each one of them. This is a year in our garden. Strawberries are one of our favourite fruits and are so easy to grow. Using this planter, we filled the holes with different varieties of strawberry plants. In just a few weeks, they were flowering. Tomato plants raised from seed were growing strong outside by June, and the strawberries were already producing the next generation of plants, with runners sprouting from all angles. The plants in the border at the back of the garden were now beginning to intermingle with each other as they grew bigger. The side border was taking a little longer to fill out, although we were already enjoying the first flowers of our favourite salvia, Salvia caradonna. By July, the back border was ablaze with colour. The plants were displaying their unique personalities, none more so than Monarda squaw with its shaggy bright red petals that scream out for your attention. A tall eupatorium, substituted after the initial planting in spring, rises as high as the fence. This border has really come into its own and has provided us with so much joy watching it mature and thrive. The side border is doing well too, and by the end of July it's filled out perfectly. This bed was designed to be more naturalistic, with repetition of the same plants along its length and also a few individual specimens for spontaneity. Stipa tenuissima weaves throughout, keeping the scheme cohesive. There was nowhere Ben liked to be more than in the garden, where he could smell the flowers, watch the birds, and enjoy the sunshine. Throughout the summer, work doesn't stop. If it's not mowing the lawn, it's watering. Of course, some of us have it much easier. Two 2022 saw record-breaking high temperatures in the UK, way too high for us, but the plants didn't seem to mind. In fact, it was the best year for flowers we've seen in a long time. It was a daily job ensuring they had adequate water, but it was well worth it.
So we're in the second part of the UK heatwave, and we're in mid-August, and it's been particularly warm. I think temperatures today have reached about 33 degrees where we are in Cheshire. It's great for plants, so long as they're kept watered and not allowed to dry out, particularly plants that are in containers where they're really dependent on you looking after them and making sure that they have enough water and nutrients. So we're just going around making sure that they're thoroughly watered, and I do suggest that any plants in containers are watered this time of year, first thing in the morning and last thing at night, and that will just give them hopefully enough water to last. And on a particular sunny day like this, if you are around during the daytime, just come and have a look and just check on them to make sure, because in a few hours time you can get a lot of moisture evaporation with that beaming hot sun baking down on the plants and on the soil. So I'm just going to go around and just give them a little bit of water just to make sure and to keep things. And I'll come and check on them again just as the sun's setting later on, and just make sure they've got adequate water for the following morning.
I've just been admiring how great this border's looking at the moment. I've been deadheading some of the Nigella plants, and it's going to get to a point where eventually I'm going to leave some of the spent heads on to collect the seed from them for next year's plants. But I've been admiring how well Super Dorothy, the rose, is doing. It's a gorgeous rose, Super Dorothy. I would recommend it to anybody. It's not something you would get for scent. It's only very slightly scented, but it was bought for sentimental reasons. So it has loads of flowers on, tons of flowers. It's a fantastic rambler, and the idea is it's going to cover this fence eventually. But it had a recent prune after its first flush of flowers, and it seems to be doing really, really well. It's come back, it's been trained up the fence in a little more of an orderly fashion now, and so we're really pleased with that. Some of the plants around here though, I'm so happy, because it's like this scabious was cut right down to the ground a month ago. Also this one as well, this beautiful Sudalcia was taken back. Look at that flower. Just notice there's more flowers coming up on there. That was taken back right to the ground, and they're both back a month later, flowering again. And that is the importance of trying to prune things at the right time. And if something wants taking back because it's looking untidy, you know, it's finished flowering, it's looking untidy, and it will potentially flower again, then it's a great thing to do. So if you cut them back, you're going to be rewarded with a second gorgeous flush of flowers. And look at this, it's so worth it just to see it flowering again. Earlier when the sun was out, the bees were all over this, and it's just so worthwhile just to take things back, sometimes to the ground depending on what the plant is, and just to see everything coming back. This geranium, we'd literally chopped this back, give it really good chop a while back, and it had finished flowering. It had started to get untidy. It was cut right back to the ground, and look at it. Although this one will not flower again, it gives a fantastic look with its foliage. It's all fresh. It makes the border look rejuvenated, and I just love it. I've also been enjoying going along and popping these seed heads, because they're not needed yet. We don't need them. I'm just deadheading the Nigella, so I just enjoy that sound when you pop the heads. But yeah, it's looking good. It's a really great border, and it's in its infancy. You know, this is the first year that this has been here, and it really is looking great already. We put these annuals in, these Nigella plants, just to really fill in the gaps, because all the plants, when we put them in,
they were still very small. So we'll see what happens next year, because chances are the geraniums and everything else will have taken over. But there'll probably be space for either Nigella or some other kind of plants going in there. I just wanted to bring you over and show you this other little bit of this small border. This Echinacea pallida here that you can see has had a lovely flower on it. It's its first year in, it's its only flower. What happened was, it was in the other border, one of the other borders, and it was being obliterated by slugs. They were just, the whole thing was just eaten to the ground, literally. Anyway, what happened was, it's been moved and it seems quite happy here where it is. There doesn't seem to be any issues with it at all with the slugs. They seem to be leaving it alone, letting it flower, and I'm really, really pleased with it. That's Ben in the background, by the way. If you can hear a cat meowing, it's Ben. So yeah, it seems really happy here. This geum as well, totally tangerine, has been flowering its head off. This too was cut back as soon as it had, it started to, it's a finished flowering, started to go over slightly, and we took it back because it was looking a bit untidy. Now with totally tangerine, it does continue to flower. We took it back and look at the results. It's growing beautifully around this Echinacea pallida. So it's a really good one to have, this as well, totally tangerine. We'd recommend that to anybody. It's a gorgeous colour and it just keeps coming and coming, but just keep deadheading it. Keep on top of your deadheading. We can't emphasise that enough. Honestly, it's the best thing you can do. Just keep on top of your deadheading. This Lichnis chalcedonica is only quite short this year. It had its first flush of flowers. We then, once they'd finished and started to look untidy, we'd cut it back slightly and it's flowered again. Obviously it's only a small plant. Eventually it will be quite tall and probably take over in a huge clump this area here, but it takes a while to get going, especially in a new border like this. And we had to enrich this little bit of border because it hadn't been used for a long time, so it needed quite a lot of enriching first, but it'll be fine. All these plants will grow into the desired height and spread over the next couple of years. We've got two poppies here. One's Beauty of Livermere and the other one, I can't remember the name of. They're two different poppies, but I love them because they're both red. They will obviously be out next year when it's time for them to flower again. But the thing is with these as well, they also, once poppies are finished, they look so untidy. The foliage is a mess, literally. So what I did was just cut them back like I've done with most things in here, and they've come back with some nice green fresh foliage, which is really nice and tactile. It's really nice to touch. But I'm really happy with this border, the way that it's taking shape slowly but surely. It's only a narrow little thing, but it makes a huge difference just seeing plants here. It's really pleasing to the eye and really cheering and soothing to the spirit as well. I've just noticed a few more heads there that need taking off. I love these, you can just pop them like that. I love that sound when they pop. Anyway, we will be saving, as I've said, some of the Nigella seed heads as time's going on now, because I think we're going to be coming towards the end of those eventually, so we will save some of the seed heads for next time. But at the minute we're just focusing on keeping them flowering for as long as possible.
At the end of the garden, another project was about to begin.
So this area of the garden is an area that we're going to be working on. We've got some things here that we're going to keep already, such as in front of me there to the left, there's a nice privet. Now that's staying in. We've got a fern over here, which is beautiful. So he's lovely, he's staying in. He's definitely staying, he's to keep. There are lots of bits and pieces here, wheelbarrow pots. There's all manner of things. This area is going to be cleared. We're going to have 2 shrubs in, possibility of a third one, but there's going to be 2 shrubs. I'll show you those in a moment. And the whole area just needs clearing and preparing for the shrubs to go in. So I better start. So we've got two shrubs here that are going to go into the new area that we've been working on. We've got Buddleia, Lockinge, and we've got a Ribes sanguineum, Purpura scarlet. And these two are going to go into the new area. The Buddleia obviously will be fantastic for the butterflies as well as the bees and lots of other insects, and the Ribes will be beautiful flowers and lots of nice berries on for the birds in spring. So as soon as the flowers finish, then the berries will appear, and so all we've got left to do is to get those into the ground.
I'm at this Primula bulliana plant, and I can see that the seed pods are just starting to brown now, which means that the seed inside is going to be ripe. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to collect the whole seed pod, and I'll later break the seed pod up and disperse the seed, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to save this seed for sowing in the spring. So these are the wonderful seed pods I've collected from Primula bulliana. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put them onto this tray. I find this the easiest way of separating the seed from the seed pods. So what I'm going to do with the seed pods is I'm just going to squeeze them very gently until they naturally break open, and then all these wonderful brown seeds can be dispersed onto this tray. There's literally many, maybe perhaps hundreds of seeds within one seed head. It's just a matter of using your fingers just to release them from that central cone until you've got them all. And then some have already begun to start to be open, so they're easy. We can just pull them more apart and just tease those lovely seeds out. And it's wonderful to think that each one of these is going to be a new plant. So I'm going to throw away the chaff. Just going to chuck that onto the garden. So we're just left with the seeds. So lots of lovely seed. So I'm now just going to put them into a pre-labelled paper envelope. You can do it without losing too many. It's a lovely sound. All those seeds hitting the bottom of the seed packet. If it wasn't such a windy day, I could probably put these onto paper and then just fold the paper over so it goes into the seed packet. But I don't really want to try, just in case I end up with all the seeds blowing away. There we go. It's okay, so labelled seed packet, and I'm just going to place that with my other seeds. So I store all our seeds in just one of these sandwich boxes. It's got a nice lid, it's airtight, and they'll just go in there until the spring, and this will be kept somewhere cool. We used to keep all of our seeds in the bottom of the fridge. That worked really well, but we don't have a really big fridge anymore, so the space is limited. So we're just depending on putting these in the bottom of our pantry, which is cold enough, and they'll stay there until the spring, and then we'll sow them in spring, and we'll go through the process of stratification and mimicking what happens in the wild, so that these will then germinate in the spring. Perfect.
It's all go in the garden today. Paul is just digging out this beautiful cornice behind me. It was planted a while back, and really, to be honest with you, we're making way for some truly amazing planting. And so the cornice is going into its new home, this nice green pot behind me, and it's going to be very happy there. Paul's just placing it in now. He's going to top it up with some soil, and that'll be happy. And the ground will look fantastic when we put the plants that we're going to put in there. Paul's just finished his planting. On the far right side we have the Veronicastrum. Next we have the Crocosmia, and then nearer towards me we have the beautiful yellow Helenium. Autumn really is a fantastic time to make changes. In our case, we took some existing plants out of the border, making space for planting. The plants that we've just put in will settle into the ground perfectly during the time that they have left during the warmer autumn days. It really is okay to make changes at this time of year. The garden's looking better already through the changes that we've made, and there are still a few changes to make in this border, but already there's a huge splash of colour just when you need it. Paul's just finishing off the planting in this area now with our homegrown Stipa tenuissima. Now we've grown these glorious plants from seed and they're looking great. He's going to put 3 into the border, but I just know it's going to look amazing, and especially next year when these continue to grow, they're going to look stunning.
On the opposite side, part of the back border was cleared in readiness for more new planting.
So this border now we have some space to plant. First of all, we dug out all the roots. There was some membrane in there as well, which we removed. We'd give it a really good dig over. And there's still some roots in there, but we're never going to get everything out. So we're going to use the Stipa tenuissima grasses to just go in this corner, so that will mirror the other side of the steps. There's 2 sets of Stipa tenuissima, so as you walk up these steps to the summer house, they're going to be on both sides, so that's going to match. The Nymphophea I'm going to plant in a little drift. Probably be about there. And then the Crocosmia. So this lovely reddy orange yellow colour is going to go on the other side. So right in the border here. So that'll light up next to the Persicaria. And again, just going to plant that into 3 small drifts. It's always advisable before you do plant a border to have things laid out as you want them, because there is a lot of manoeuvring around trying to figure out the best place to put things. And sometimes, even if you do this on paper, it doesn't always go to plan. And I can really definitely say that that is the truth. And in front, we're going to have these Crocosmia plants, we're going to have the Nymphophea plants, and then just at the front here, we might plant some more Achilleas. I do like Achilleas, they go really well with the red hot polkas. We might put some more salvia in here. So we've not quite decided yet what the front of the border is going to look like. But when we do have that, we'll put them in as well. So all that's left to do now is pop the plants in. So I'm just going to dig little holes. And this corner is really, really free draining. It has a lot of stones that are in from the previous bed, from the previous scheme. So they're just going to go in there. And these plants are going to thank us for coming out of the pots, because they have been in these pots for quite a while. It's so good to have soil to dig in. For so long we were container gardening and we missed so much that contact with the earth. So it's wonderful to have proper soil to play around in. So next, these lovely Nifophias. So nice and deep. It can go in just there. And this is a variety we've never grown before, and we haven't really seen it in flower apart from looking at some photographs on the internet. So we've taken a chance. It was at a really good price at the garden centre, so we couldn't pass it up. It's really free draining, this soil. These are going to love it. And I'm planting quite close together because we do like a packed border. And as things grow, we can always lift and divide when they're needed. So next the Crocosmia. So these are now all nice and divided. And if you notice, I left the plants, even though I'd split them and divided them, I left them in these little containers. And that's so that when they're on the ground, if you just give it a little bit of a shake around, it leaves an impression on the soil. So when you remove the plant pot, you know exactly where the plant was. Come up through there, and then lastly closer. So we thinned out this draining mycorrhizan. This was in a huge wave covering this whole area, and we thinned all that down so it's just a small little clump now, and that's left us space for all this beautiful planting. And this is going to be an absolute treat, and we're going to make it blend together nicely by just interspersing probably some achillea, because we do like achillea, probably a few interspersed plants around just to make that all nice and cohesive. All that's left to do now is water it, and with the temperature of the soil at the moment being quite warm, those roots will settle in quite easily with plenty of time before the weather gets too cold, and it'll look absolutely fabulous. This time next year there'll be a splash of colour and it'll look amazing. I'm really impressed.
It's autumn, it's early evening, and I'm outside in the garden getting up close and personal with some of our plants. I'm loving the way that Geranium Patricia is still flowering her little socks off. She's been going all through the summer and she looks absolutely amazing right now still in autumn. The Steeper tenuissima as well, that we'd grown, many of which from seed, from our own seed, is just so graceful. It's so tactile. It's a plant that you want to be up close with, a plant that you want to touch, a plant that just looks so contemporary in a border. I always think Steeper tenuissima brings a border forward. You know, you can have a cottage garden and you include Steeper tenuissima and somehow it's the old-fashioned mixed in with the new, and I think that's a really great thing. I love the way that so many of the plants in our garden are still flowering now. It's autumn and yet there's so much to enjoy. It's not all over. Autumn is truly a magical season.
This is one of my favourite plants. This is Echinacea pallida, and it's equally as nice as it's going into autumn as it is when it's in flower in summer. These lovely pink petals are now frazzling up and turning browns and blacks, and it's not called a coneflower for no reason. As you can see, this central bit, which is the cone, is nice and tactile. You'd think it would be quite spiny, but actually it's quite soft to touch. And all the beautiful seed will be inside that cone. But I'm going to leave it because I really, really like the seed heads of Echinaceas. And later on, the birds will be trying to get the seed out. So it's really good for wildlife too. Some more of my favourite seed heads include the Eupatorium. This huge beast I'm having to bend towards me because I can't reach it right at the back of the border. And these lovely fluffy seed heads, literally a big gust of wind and they'll blow off and try and set seed somewhere else in the garden. Remarkable. And also the Monarda, which you know I am really a fan of. So the Monarda we have in the garden, which was a beautiful vivid red in summer, it's now gone all brown and crisp, and you can even, when you touch it, has that crispy feeling and sound to it. I'm leaving all these on because if we get a touch of frost, they will absolutely look fantastic. They're just amazing. I love seed heads almost as much as I love the flowers. And this is the reason why we don't chop things down after they've flowered. There's so much more to gain from leaving the seed heads, leaving the plants, letting them do their own thing and chopping back in spring. They're just amazing.
October was a month of bulb planting and planting a pot for next to the front door. With the winter approaching, Paul got to work on building a book hotel using bits and pieces from around the garden. This will make the perfect home for the garden books to overwinter until the warmer weather in the spring. November saw the planting of a new tree, Prunus nigra. This has striking dark purple leaves and is covered with pale pink flowers in spring. This will make a fantastic new addition to the garden and provide so much interest for many years to come.
I've come to these containers, and these were our summer containers near the front door, and we had a beautiful dahlia in each one of the two we have each side of the front door, and it was called Happy Days Yellow, and it has the most lovely bright yellow flowers on these lovely purple stems. So with the recent frost we've had, these have obviously been affected. So when the dahlias are looking in this kind of state, you know it's time to dig them up and prepare them for storing over the winter. Now if you live in warmer climates, you may not need to do this. You can leave them in the ground. Because we live in a fairly cold place, but we do get cold temperatures in the winter time, we don't want to take any chances on them not surviving the winter. So I'm going to dig them up and show you how we prepare them for storing. So I'm just going to get a fork and just lift around the compost, whilst at the same time giving them a gentle pull. So there we go. So all I'm going to do is just pop them in a tray, bit of newspaper underneath, and just leave them like that. And I put these in the summer house just to make sure they can dry before we then do the next step in storing them for winter.